It's March 28th, opening day 2024. Chicago White Sox have wrapped up their offseason and they're ready to play baseball in a new season after finishing 90 and 72. Just a quick glance, very quickly to begin, at the preseason predictions. The White Sox are supposed to win 95 games this year and walk away with the AL Central fairly easily. They're supposed to be nearly the best offense, just behind the Minnesota Twins by 6 runs, and by far the best pitching staff, only being projected to allow 630 runs against. They would be a very formidable team in the AL, predicted to have the best record, predicted to have the third best record in the major leagues, only behind the Padres and the Braves. And if we look at Zach Wheeler being predicted to be one of the best pitchers in the American League with a 3.46 ERA, 213 and a third innings pitched, that would be a very welcome outcome after his season in 2023, where he only pitched 164 innings and had a 4.99 ERA. But we'll get to the rest of the moves that the White Sox accomplished in the offseason before we start the year. In the lineup, bringing back that catcher tandem of Dingler and Stubbs. Sheets and Vaughn make the opening day roster. Tim Anderson, now at second base, has the potential to be a Gold Glover there. I am happy about the move because, as predicted, as he's aged and after that injury, his infield range went down from a 65 to a 60. That's not passable for a shortstop in this game. Brandon Drury, we brought in via trade with the Angels. We sent, wow, that's a lot of language in his history. We sent away Aaron Bummer and his contract to the Angels. Pedro Grifol wasn't really using him at all and wasn't planning on it, I should say. So to exchange a pitcher that wasn't going to pitch much, under contract for the next 2 years for more than $1 or $2 million, I'm happy about that. Drury is a free agent after the year, and he's making $8.5 million. We got the Angels to retain 10%. He'll be a right-handed platoon bat after a decent season with the bat a season ago with the Angels, and he's a plus defender at second base, if I could find it. Just barely, and he can play third base and left field, so I'm happy to bring him in. He's been successful the past few seasons. Ryan McMahon, obviously, starting at third base. We did sign Nick Ahmed. 2 years, $14 million, $7 million a year. I wanted the second year to be a vesting option, but I'm okay with it being a regular contract year. He's so good with the glove that I would be okay having him as a reserve option next year if the bat fades dramatically. In the outfield, it's the same group of guys, now with Yohan Moncada playing right field instead of third base. He also has the potential to be a Gold Glover there. And I think that the theme with this lineup overall right now is that every one of these guys is a plus defender. Every one of these guys will be adding positive value to the team with their gloves and not just their bats. And I think that's why our prediction to win 95 games happened to be that way. On the pitching side, Andrew Abbott slots in as the closer right now, not Liam Hendricks. Abbott will be a rookie closer for the White Sox this season. See how he does as a lefty. I don't know why he's upset. He's upset about his performance, even though he was fine in spring training. Yennier Cano also in there. Dylan Cease back to be the ace of the staff. I think he'll be better than Wheeler. We'll go into Wheeler. The computer predicts him to be really good, but I'll believe it when I see it. We did bring in Bert Cole. His stuff went down a bit. He was a 50 rated pitcher. Now he's a 45 rated pitcher with 40 stuff. It's just this movement and control is so good. I'm not very worried. And if not, I mean, he's making $3 million a year. Not too hard to cut bait with him. This last rotation spot was going to go to Alex Cobb. I signed him for $2 million, but I don't know exactly what his injury was. He tore his elbow, Chris Wright, tore his elbow ligament in spring training, and he's out for the year. I'll probably just cut him after the year, and he won't ever play for the White Sox. But we did sign Sonny Gray towards the beginning of spring training after the injury happened. And Gray will be basically the same guy that Cobb would have been in the starting rotation. And we do have these two veterans, but I have some young guys that I'm keeping my eye on, one of which, Jonathan Stever, had some talent change randomness happen. He added a cutter, velo went up, all of his ratings went up, and that's a telltale sign that he got some TCR magic, and I think I'll use him in the bullpen this year as he only has a few innings under his belt in 2020 and 2021, and then maybe move him to the starting rotation if one of these veterans falters. Giolito is back. He signed that extension. So I like the rotation as we have it, and I like some of the backup pieces. The bullpen kind of remains intact. Brandon Williamson does slot in, though, as a middle reliever and a lefty. Giovanni Moran and Hendricks will be the setup men. Leiter and Cano in long relief, which is surprising to me, but they pitched well last year. So that's the big league club right now. If I go into the minor leagues, Christian Mena also vastly improved. I don't know if this is TCR here in February. He didn't add a pitch. That's normally what happens, but he did increase in everything, including his velocity. So I'm excited about him as another potential option in the rotation. He's only 21, so I didn't add him to the 40-man like I did Stever. Terrell Tatum in AAA. We'll see if anything outside of this eye and the gap power develop. Otherwise, I don't know if he's anything more than a bench bat right now. Lloyd El Chapelli also in AAA. I added him to the 40-man. I'd like to see him hit better in the minors. I signed Cavan Biggio to be the left-handed infielder off the bench. He's a captain. Right now I'm starting him in AAA because we have a lot of outfield pieces that I don't want to lose by DFAing them or sending them down. So if somebody like Gavin Sheets stumbles out of the gate, or one of those other lefty bats like Seth Brown, I'll bring up Biggio, and he'll be a utility man as a lefty. He does have options right now. JT Brubaker, I signed to a minor league deal. This movement scares me, but he's just a veteran starting option. Jonathan Cannon on the 40-man. I did add Adam Hackenberg as our third catcher. I brought in Adani Hechavarria, former White Sox from the Atlantic League. He played for the Long Island Ducks. He's got a very good arm, very good range in the infield to be a quality backup shortstop option in the minors. Other than that, Jordan Westberg and Norge Vera round out the 40-man, but each of these two players have their flaws. And to be honest, looking back on this trade for Sean Burke, the Reds get Burke, now a starter, 45 potential. He pitched poorly for them in the majors last year. We get Alan Cerda, who I don't know about yet. Brandon Williamson is is with the big club, and so is Andrew Abbott. We'll see how that trade pans out, but right now it's not as much of a huge win for us as we once thought it was. Yoelqui Cespedes, his ratings have kind of fallen off, so I was okay leaving him off the opening day roster. Maui Ahuna will start at AA with Veras. Harry Ford I promoted, and he's going to get some at-bats in left field. And Luis Rodriguez, who I signed in March of 2023, is a promising younger bat. He could be more well-rounded if this power and eye develop. I don't know if that'll happen, but he could be a quality option. He hit well in high A last season. The low minors are just terrible. Nobody higher than a 40 potential in high A right now, and really not that many above a 30 potential. Kyle Karros, coming right up from rookie ball, is the best option offensively, I think, for that team. Christian Rodriguez, I switched to a full-time outfielder. I don't think the pitching was going to come along. He's stuck at a 20 movement. I don't know if that's ever going to come up, and I would rather have him work on his offense for right now. The rookies are still the same. I'll let you know if that changes, but that is the team right now. I also did claim Jose Siri on waivers just because of that 75 outfield range. I'm waiting for him to clear our waivers through spring training. I'd like him to be the backup AAA center fielder. And that'll do it. Here's Cobb in the injured list. I added Chris Wright to the 40-man as well as a lefty reliever, but he partially tore his labrum. And that about does it for our off-season moves. I want to look at the rest of the league. I highlighted some players here that I wanted to take a look at. The Orioles added 3 starting pitchers. Mitch Keller, they traded Heston Kjerstad to Pittsburgh for him, but Kjerstad's kind of fallen off as a prospect. They added him. They signed Jordan Montgomery to a long-term deal, and they also signed Julio Urias to a long-term deal. So the Orioles are ready to go for it. They want to enhance their rotation with all those young stars they have. This could be a blueprint for what they do in real-life free agency this fall. Arturo Rillazola was the Cuban-generated free agent. He's got an awful personality class, but the Red Sox signed him to a decent deal, and he's a very good bat. And because of that, they had to trade Trevor Story, who I will find here. They traded Story to Milwaukee for really not all that much. They wanted to get off his contract. And Story had produced for them 134 WRC plus 2.4 WAR in about a half a season of work, but they replaced him with Rillazola, and Story is now in Milwaukee, replacing Willy Adames. Not at shortstop, but Adames was traded away from the Brewers. Joey Gallo signs a long-term deal with the Cincinnati Reds. He hit 54 home runs, 4.4 WAR with Minnesota last year. All you're getting is the power and the eye with him, but he did hit 224 in Cincinnati, which is a good number for him after a disaster of a season with the Yankees and the Dodgers in 2022. He's a good outfield glove, but now at age 30, I don't know if you really want to give him a contract that stretches into his early 30s for that number 6 at 145 for Gallo. Yasmani Grandal, after we let him go, signs with Detroit, who needed to replace Dylan Dingler. This is not that bad of a deal for them. 3 years, $30 million with a vesting option in the third year. Alex Bregman traded to Minnesota for Jalen Nolan, David Festa, and Brian Chorio, who has come along well as a prospect for the Twins at that point. Bregman is a free agent after the year, and the Twins obviously want to go for it. So they trade for him after a kind of lackluster season. 116 WRC plus, 3.3 WAR for Bregman last year in Minnesota. The Mets, another team like the Orioles, stacking up in their starting rotation, adding Pablo Lopez in a trade with Minnesota for Jet Williams and Benito Garcia. Jet Williams, decent prospect for them now with Minnesota. They added Aaron Nola in free agency to really not that bad of a deal. 4 years, $86.4 million. He had a good year with Philadelphia last season. Goes to the division rival Mets. Framber Valdez in a trade with Houston. Houston was really looking to sell their highest paid veterans after not making the latter rounds of the playoffs in 2023. And the Mets trade for Patrick Wisdom, who had a 41 home run season for the Cubs in 2023. Finally, Shohei Ohtani, or I guess I'll go into Brian Reynolds first, traded to Texas by Pittsburgh for Brock Porter and Kumar Rocker, two of the best young pitching prospects in baseball right now. They trade away Reynolds, who was a free agent after the year they didn't have his extension programmed into the game. He had an amazing year leading the league in doubles, 28 homers, hitting over 300. The Rangers are looking to be back in the ALCS after being swept by the Yankees last season. Shohei Ohtani signs a mega deal with the St. Louis Cardinals, but far less than he'll get in real life. 6 years, $181.5 million after, I think, a little bit more than 7 WAR if you combine his batting and pitching totals. Still the same Shohei we all know. Maybe not as dominant in this game, but the best free agent maybe ever on the market in Major League Baseball, signed by the Cardinals. There's a few more trades I can get into and some storylines with the transactions that went down in the offseason. The Mets obviously added the most WAR, followed by the Cardinals, and then the Rangers with the acquisition of Reynolds. The Brewers, even though they did lose Willy Adames to Cleveland, are behind them in fourth, and then the Orioles with their rotation adds are in fifth. The White Sox are in sixth with everything we did. We shuffled 24 players out the door, brought in 15. Cobb is the best acquisition by WAR, but now he's out for the year. He's kind of out of it. So maybe this was an even offseason, bringing in younger, more affordable talent and cutting a guy like Trevor Williams, who was terrible in spring training. And I didn't want to have start games. He's better as a starter at this point in his career than a reliever, an innings eater. Pittsburgh, on the opposite end, loses 16.6 WAR, by far just the worst offseason, losing Reynolds, Wei-Chung Wang, David Bednar to Texas, Austin Hedges in free agency, Chad Kuhl is gone. They lose 17.2 WAR in total. I wonder who they even put on the field in 2024. Minnesota, even though they add Bregman, they lose Gallo, Maeda, Lopez, Thielbar, Sonny Gray. They do add Sir Anthony Dominguez, who I think could be a good reliever, but good thing to see for us that the Tigers, the Guardians, the Royals, and the Twins are all losing production in the offseason. I also want to see Houston lost Montero, Lugo, and Corey Lee in free agency. So it wasn't a complete sell-off, but it was a lot of guys that they ended up losing. I like Brace Turang being added by the Tigers, but they do lose Brant Herter in that trade with the Brewers. I like the Brewers offseason a lot. I think the NL is going to be challenging this season with the Mets, the Cardinals, and the Brewers all adding. And maybe us, the Orioles, and the Rangers will be the new class of the American League. But that about does it for preparations that I had for the 2024 season. We had a shortstop. We add Ryan McMahon at third base, move Moncada and Anderson to right field and second base respectively. We had two veteran starting pitchers, not much in the bullpen other than Yenier Cano, and we have some progression in the farm in the high levels of the minors, but more work to be done. The farm system, Maui Ahuna actually dropped out of the top 100 for some reason. He's now the 135th ranked prospect in baseball, even though he hasn't lost any ratings on our end. Maybe he's now more of a third baseman rather than a second baseman. We'll have to see. Winokur and Veras are only two top 100 prospects. We're now down to 26th in our system rankings from 19th the last time I checked in on this. We did add Luis Cardenas, an international free agency who was better when I signed him. Or no, he was the scouting discovery. Cervantes was a signing. I lost out on a lot of the guys that I wanted. Rezendiz was the best guy we got. He has the potential to be the best bat in the league, especially with this personality. I think I signed him for $730,000. I had a few guys that I had $2 to $3 million offers to, but they eventually went for around $5 million to some bigger market teams. I was happy about getting Rezendiz and the two other pitchers that I got. But otherwise, it was an eventful offseason with a lot of moves, but the main core stays intact with the three starting pitchers we had at the end of the season, and the outfield is the same. Still have Vaughn, still have Anderson, and this team is ready to compete in 2024. I'm flexible with the window we have. I'll sell at a moment's notice just because the farm system is so poor, but right now we're looking to compete this season, and then maybe next season. We don't have that many free agents pending. Hendricks, Anderson, Drury, Wheeler is the biggest one, I think. But other than that, we're a team that's built, I think, to last for the next few years. So with that, that'll do it for this video. The next video should be around the 2024 MLB Draft. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.